Good morning, my students. Let us start with the second part of the series anti-cancer drugs. You just have to remember that whatever may be the nature of these anti-cancer drugs, their primary or basic approach remains the same, that is to damage the DNA function through different ways, like inhibition of synthesis, transcription to RNA, and later translation to RNA to functional proteins. And hence the antimetabolites and the antibiotics, which I discussed before, damage or disrupt DNA. It interfere with topoisomerase activity, or may alter the structure of RNA. Whereas the plant alkaloids like vincristine, vinblastine, these are having an action more like colchicine. They are disrupting mitosis. The agents such as asparaginase destroy amino acids needed for translation, and there are drugs like steroids which will interfere with transcription. So many clinically used antineoplastic drugs, they used to undergo either chemical or enzymatic modification to become actively cytotoxic. So we'll discuss few of the anti malignancy drugs or anti-cancer drugs in the following slides. So we're starting with the alkylating agents, and one of the frightening development of World War I was the introduction of chemical warfare. These compounds were known as the nitrogen mastered gases. The nitrogen masters were observed to inhibit cell growth, especially of bone marrow, shortly after the war. These compounds were investigated and shown to inhibit the growth of cancer cells. These agents are highly reactive molecules. They transfer their alkyl groups to important cellular constituents like DNA or RNA. And at an mostly this replacement happening at the electron rich site, making them non-functional. In general, they react with either amino or the hydroxyl or the carboxyl, sulfurhydryl, these kind of groups of all nucleophiles. Now, alkylation takes place through chemical formation of a positively charged carbonium ion that reacts primarily with a functional constituent of DNA, though other nucleophilic constituents like RNA, proteins, membrane components may also be affected. The major site of alkylation within DNA is the N7 position of guanine. So the nitrosoureas are lipophilic, they can cross the blood-brain barrier. So they are often used to treat brain tumors. So these are a few examples of alkylating agents, and very important out of them are cyclophosphamide from the chloroethylamines, the busulfan, which is the alkyl sulfonate. Then comes the nitrosourea, which is carmastine. So commonly we are seeing these kind of adverse effect with almost all the alkylating agents. Myelosuppression is the dose limiting adverse effect of most of them. Nausea and vomiting are almost common for most of the anti-cancer drugs. Teratogenicity and gonadal atrophy may happen with this. And treatment also carries a major risk of leukemogenesis and carcinogenesis. So these are very common adverse effect of alkylating agent. And sometimes it so happen that resistance may occur to these alkylating agents, and these are happening due to several causes. One of the most important causes, membrane transport, which may be decreased. The drug may be bound by glutathione via GSH, that means glutathione stimulating hormone S transferase, or the metallothioneins in the cytoplasm, and they are inactivated. The drug may be metabolized to inactive species. So these are the reasons why sometimes the resistance occurs to this alkylating agents. So mustine is one of the important alkylating agent which is given by intravenous route. The main indication of mustin is in the treatment of Hodgkin's disease and lymphoma, but it may be also useful in other malignancies. Cyclophosphamide, as I mentioned, is one of the most important drug, which is basically a prodrug converted to 4-hydroxycyclophosphamide by hepatic CYP2B enzyme. And this 4-hydroxycyclophosphamide and its tautomer, that is the aldophosphamide, are carried to the tumor cells, where aldophosphamide is cleaved into phosphoramide mustard and acrolein. Phosphoramide mustard is responsible for anti-tumor activity of cyclophosphamide. So, whatever may be the indication written here are basically happening due to the action of that part that is called phosphoramide, whereas the adverse drug reactions, especially the hemorrhagic cystitis, is happening due to acrolein component, which is usually seen with little bit of long term of cyclophosphamide therapy. Cyclophosphamide is also used in different kind of skin disorders like bullous pemphigoid or pemphigus vulgaris. So, in those cases, these anti-cancer drugs are showing their action, and those things are not curable but suppressible. The syndrome of inappropriate secretion of antidiuretic hormone secretion has been observed in patients receiving cyclophosphamide, but it is happening usually in higher doses. There is another analog of cyclophosphamide, and that drug is efosfamide, and this is used for germ cell testicular tumor and to treat pediatric and adult sarcomas. Whereas the nitrosoureas are carmastine, lomastine and semastine. Because of their high lipid solubility, these compounds can cross the blood-brain barrier and are useful for the treatment of brain tumors. The third group is alkyl sulfones, that is the busulfone. It is indicated for chronic myelocytic leukemia and polycythemia vera. It is available in different vials, like 60 milligram vial. Each vial is reconstituted with 10 milliliter of 0.9% normal saline or in distilled water. And these drugs are having one of the important toxicity, that is pulmonary toxicity. Pulmonary fibrosis is common with busulfan, and this kind of lung is called busulfan lung. So, next we are coming to the group called anti-metabolites. These compounds, which are structurally similar to normal metabolic constituents of the cell, that include folic acid, pyrimidine and purines. These metabolites inhibit the enzyme necessary for folic acid synthesis or purine or pyrimidine activation of DNA or RNA. They lack selectivity as they not only have cytotoxic action on the tumor cells but also exhibit the effect on normal cells, thus contributing to the adverse effects they produce. Methotrexate, 5-fluorouracil, cytarabine, 6-mercaptopurine, 6-thioguanine, gemcitabine are basically the primary metabolites, antimetabolites used for clinical purpose. Folic acid antagonist is methotrexate, and methotrexate is basically an antifolate. Folic acid is essential for enzymatic reactions that transfer methyl or related groups during purine and pyrimidine synthesis. The antimetabolite methotrexate competitively inhibits the enzyme called dihydrofolate reductase, which catalyzes the reduction of dihydrofolate to tetrahydrofolate. This blocks regeneration of tetrahydrofolate and prevents synthesis of purines and pyrimidines, which in effect results in interfering with the formation of DNA, RNA and key cellular proteins. The action is similar to that produced by sulfonamide. Formation of methotrexate polyglutamate derivative is essential for the antitumor activity of the compound. Transport of methotrexate is carrier mediated and reduced methotrexate uptake in a prominent, basically a prominent mechanism of tumor cell resistance. So, resistance also occurs with methotrexate. The other mechanisms of methotrexate resistance results from decreased formation of methotrexate polyglutamate, increased formation of dihydrofolate reductase through gene amplification. There is an analog which is known as pemetrexate, which is basically an methotrexate analog and inhibits several folate dependent enzymes involved in the synthesis of thymidine and purine nucleotides. Like methotrexate, pemetrexate is active in the S phase of the cell cycle and often gets converted to polyglutamate, which is formed in malignant cells. It is approved for the treatment of malignant mesothelioma and in combination with cisplatin. Clinical uses of methotrexate are, quite regularly we are giving it in treatment of childhood leukemia at a reasonable period of remission. Beside this, we are using it in chorioepithelioma, in hydatiform mole, breast cancer, solid tumors such as osteogenic sarcoma, with the provision of rescue with leucovorin, which is folinic acid or cytovoram factor, because methotrexate may lead to megaloblastic anemia due to deficiency of dihydrofolate reductase enzyme. That means the deficiency of folic acid. It is also effective in treatment of squamous cell carcinoma of lungs. The same drug in a different dose, that is called pulse therapy. It's ranging from 10 milligram to 15 milligram or even 20 milligram per week. That means once weekly dose or twice weekly dose in a divided dose. It can be given in case of psoriatic arthritis as well as in rheumatoid arthritis. So, psoriatic arthritis and rheumatoid arthritis are other indications of methotrexate. Methotrexate produces anorexia, nausea and vomiting. It progressive weight loss, bloody diarrhea, leukopenia and depression. Leucovorin is indicated to diminish toxicity and counteract the effects of impaired methotrexate elimination or inadvertent overdoses of methotrexate and other folic acid antagonists. So, in this case you have to give leucovorin ideally, because folic acid itself probably will not work, but whenever we are giving prophylactically, normally we are using methotrexate with folic acid. So, these are the indications which I mentioned for the methotrexate, and next we are coming to the next group, that is the purine antagonist and 6-mercaptopurine. These drugs are believed to act similarly to inhibit purine based synthesis, and their exact mechanism of action is still unknown. They are primarily given for the maintenance of remission in patients with acute lymphocytic leukemia and given in combination with methotrexate for that particular purpose. Myelosuppression is generally mild with thiaguanine, whereas long-term mercaptopurine use may cause hepatotoxicity. Hepatotoxicity is also seen in case of long-term use of methotrexate. 5-fluorouracil is basically a pyrimidine analog, and the halogenated pyrimidine analog is basically acts primarily by inhibiting pyrimidine synthesis and thus DNA formation. It's a prodrug and converted to 5-fluoro-2-deoxyuridine 5-monophosphate, which binds to the enzyme thymidylate synthase and folate cofactors covalently and preventing the formation of thymidylate, and finally it inhibits the DNA formation of thymidylate, and that is the way it prevents the DNA synthesis. It is converted to 5-fluorodine 5-triphosphate, which is incorporated into RNA, where it interferes with RNA processing and mRNA translation. Additionally, 5-fluorouracil is also converted to 5-fluorodeoxyuridine 5-triphosphate, which gets incorporated into cellular DNA and resulting in inhibition of DNA synthesis and function. It is used to treat solid tumors, especially breast, colorectal and gastric tumors, squamous cell carcinoma tumors of the head and neck. This is also given in hepatic cancers. In combination with cyclophosphamide methotrexate used for breast cancer, and cisplatin with cisplatin it is given in case of ovarian cancer. It's a highly toxic drug and it may lead to the common side effects like nausea, vomiting, myelosuppression, oral and gastrointestinal ulceration, that means peptic ulceration. These are common adverse drug reactions of most of the anti-cancer drugs. The other pyrimidine antagonists are cytarabine, which is having narrow clinical spectrum and primarily used in combination with daunorubicin and thioguanine. And the other drugs are gemcitabine and cytarabine. We are shifting to the next group, which is called antibiotics. Antibiotics is a group which is belonging to this anti-cancer drug, and the drugs which are commonly used in clinical practice are bleomycin, adriamycin, actinomycin D and bleomycin. So these are the common examples of antibiotics. These drugs are also known as anti-tumor antibiotics, so that you can differentiate it from the classical definition of antibiotics, which we discuss probably for a long duration with the different chemotherapeutic agents. So these drugs are different from the drugs like penicillin and tetracycline. So these two are the adriamycin and daunorubicin are tetracycline rings with their sugar donosamine. They are DNA intercalating agents that block the synthesis of DNA and RNA. These dactinomycin or actinomycin D is obtained from Streptomyces species and binds tightly to double-stranded DNA through intercalation between adjacent guanine and cytosine base pairs. These drugs are given intravenous route and mostly used in Wilms tumor and rhabdomyosarcoma, whereas mitomycin C is basically inhibits DNA synthesis and cross-links with DNA. This is administered again via intravenous route and it is mostly given in case of carcinoma of the cervix, stomach, breast, bladder cancer, anus, all these things. The daunorubicin and doxorubicin, which is known as adriamycin, which is shown here, having tetracycline rings, are basically showing their effect, cytotoxicity rather, as a result of intracellular formation of free radicals causing DNA damage. Besides this, they cause DNA damage by intercalation into DNA. So there are two mechanisms. Clinically, these are used in the treatment of different breast cancers, acute leukemia, Hodgkin's disease, and its combination with cyclophosphamide and vincristine and procarbazine. Doxorubicin is commonly used to treat cancers of endometrium, ovary, testicle, thyroid and stomach. Cardiotoxicity is one of the most important toxicity of this group of drugs, and these adriamycin groups are showing basically manifestations like the acute form characterized by abnormal ECG changes. It includes AST and T wave alteration and cardiac arrhythmia. So if somebody asks you which drugs are responsible for causing cardiotoxicity out of these anti-cancer drugs, because it's a special side effect or adverse drug reaction of these groups, so you must specify that these are daunorubicin and doxorubicin. And these cardiotoxicity in acute form is brief and does not cause usually any serious clinical problem, but the chronic cardiotoxicity is manifested as congestive heart failure, and that is dose dependent. So if the total dose exceeds 550 milligram per meter square, then it may lead to congestive heart failure, and that heart failure is not possible to manage only with digoxin or digitalis therapy. Or rather, nowadays the digoxin is not used in most of the heart failure cases unless it is associated with atrial arrhythmias like atrial fibrillation. Whereas the idarubicin is another drug which is basically a semi-synthetic anthracycline glycoside and analog of daunorubicin, and approved for indication therapy of acute myeloid leukemia in combination with cytarabine. Whereas epirubicin is a doxorubicin analog. It is used to treat early stage node positive and metastatic breast cancer. Bleomycin, which I have mentioned before, is basically also responsible for causing pulmonary toxicity. So there are two drugs which are causing pulmonary toxicity. One is busulfan and the other one is bleomycin. Both of them are starting with the alphabet B. Bleomycin is basically a mixture of several basic glycopeptides synthesized by a species of Streptococcus verticillus, and it binds to DNA and causes single and double stranded DNA breaks following free radical formation and inhibition of DNA synthesis. The cleavage or fragmentation of DNA is usually happen due to the formation and oxidation of a complex of bleomycin and oxygen and iron. These bleomycin is indicated for the treatment of Hodgkin's and non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And next comes the group called vinca alkaloids, and two of them are very important. One is vinblastine and another one is vinblastine. Vinca alkaloids are obtained from Catharanthus roseus, that is called Vinca rosea, and the three vinca alkaloids available for clinical use: vincristine, vinblastine and vinorelbine. Beside this, there is the last and the new drug is called vinzolidine. Now, vinca alkaloids are cell cycle specific that block cells in the metaphase of mitosis. This action is shared by the other natural products colchicine, podophylotoxin and texin. So, they have a common mechanism of action. Vinca alkaloids bind to tubulin monomers, inhibiting the formation of microtubules, and without adequate number of microtubules, these newly replicated chromosomes cannot be separated and the cell division is blocked. So, basically aborting the cell division process triggers the cell death, and apart from disruption of microtubules and inhibition of mitosis, vinca alkaloids also produce some important biochemical changes in the cell, like inhibition of synthesis of proteins and the nucleic acids, its elevation of oxidized glutathione and alteration of lipid metabolism. Whereas the common adverse drug reaction of vincristine is basically the it's causing it is used in acute lymphatic leukemia in children in combination with prednisolone, and commonly we have noticed that vinblastine is causing myelosuppression. Rather, all of them are responsible for causing myelosuppression, the GI mucosal damage and alopecia. And the vinca alkaloids, there are some vinca alkaloids which may cause neurotoxicity, and it is manifested as tingling and numbness of the extremities and loss of deep tendon reflexes. So, vinorelbine is basically one such drug which is showing more neurotoxicity. These vincristine and vinblastine are mostly showing the myelotoxicity. The taxanes are the paclitaxel and the docetaxel. This is a different group of drugs. This is also a plant product. It obtained from the bark of Pacific yew and European yew. This paclitaxel was the first taxane obtained from the plant sources, and docetaxel is a semi-synthetic derivative. These taxanes bind to the beta tubulin subunit of microtubules and at a site distinct from the binding site of vinca alkaloid. So, they are acting at a different site, but their common target is the same. Even for colchicine, it is a different site. Unlike the vinca alkaloids, these texins promote microtubule polymerization and it inhibit depolymerization. The stabilization of microtubules in a polymerized state arrests cell in mitosis and eventually leads to activation of apoptosis. Normally, the paclitaxel, the docetaxel are active against ovarian tumors, advanced breast tumor, non-small cell and small cell lung cancer, head and neck cancers, esophageal and prostatic cancers. The common adverse effects we are observing with this is the acute hypersensitivity reaction, and this can be obviously obviated by administration of dexamethasone and some H1 antagonists like antihistaminic drugs. The classical ones like chlorpheniramine or diphenhydramine before treatment with paclitaxel. The other important adverse effects include myalgia, myelosuppression and peripheral neuropathy. Abraxane is basically a albumin bound form of paclitaxel which does not cause hypersensitivity reaction. Cisplatin is basically a drug which is a platinum coordination complex. It has three of the drugs belonging to the same group: cisplatin, carboplatin, and oxaliplatin. Cisplatin and carboplatin and oxaliplatin are iatrogenic platinum coordination complex. These three agents act by alkylating agents and exert cytotoxic effects. They kill the tumor cells in all stages. They binds to the guanine in DNA and RNA, and the interaction is stabilized by hydrogen bonding. Though the molecular mechanism of action is unwinding and shortening of the DNA helix. Its indication as it has efficacy against a wide range of neoplasm. Is given intravenously as a first line drug for treatment of testicular, ovarian, and bladder cancer. Cisplatin produces relatively little myelosuppression, but it's very nausea and vomiting are very common, and hence ondansetron is probably prescribed half an hour to 1 hour before giving cisplatin therapy in case of testicular tumor or ovarian cancer. So these drugs, other than cisplatin, the oxaliplatin is approved as a second drug in the treatment of colorectal cancer, following the treatment with a combination of 5-fluorouracil and leucovorin. So 5-fluorouracil and leucovorin is the first line drug for the treatment of colorectal cancer. So adverse drug reactions are very common for most of the drugs. Few of them are the common adverse drug reactions which I discussed in the previous series of discussion on anti-cancer drugs. Here the alkylating agents may lead to different kinds of bone marrow toxicity. Most dangerous one produced by this is myelosuppression. Beside this, there may be neurotoxicity. Cyclophosphamide has lesser effects on peripheral blood platelets than other agents. Busulfan suppresses all blood elements including stem cells. There is a reduction of granulocyte count within a few days of starting therapy. So the bone marrow toxicity includes neutropenia, granulocytopenia, leukopenia, thrombocytopenia, as a whole the pancytopenia. Beside this, the second one is called the mucosal toxicity. Because of their action, the rapidly multiplying cells, these agents may damage to mucosal cells. So there may be oral mucosal ulceration as well as intestinal denudation and ulceration at the level of stomach. So cyclophosphamide, melphalan, thiotepa are causing less mucosal damage, but nausea, vomiting are common in almost all cases. Alopecia is very common with the alkylating agents. It is due to epithelial damage of the skin. It occurs commonly with cyclophosphamide. Neurotoxicity manifested as nausea and vomiting, usually seen after intravenous administration of nitrogen mustard or other drugs. Ifosfamide is mostly the neurotoxic. The peripheral neuropathy is one of the major adverse reaction of cisplatin. Cisplatin induced neurotoxicity occurs mainly in large sensory fibers and it results in numbness and tingling. The hemorrhagic cystitis, which is a very common adverse effect of cyclophosphamide and its analog ifosfamide, is happening due to its one of its metabolite acrolein component, and it's managed by giving Mesna. So hemorrhagic cystitis is one of the important adverse drug reaction of cyclophosphamide, and the treatment of this hemorrhagic cystitis is Mesna. Mesna stands for 2-mercaptoethane sulfonate sodium. It reacts chemically with urotoxic ifosfamide metabolite or acrolein compound and 4-hydroxy-ifosfamide and resulting in their detoxification. Mesna can be given both intravenously and orally. It's given via intravenously at a dose of 240 mg per meter square 15 minutes before and 4 and 8 hours after the administration of cyclophosphamide or ifosfamide given in a dose of 1.2 gram per meter square. So Mesna can also be given intravenously in a dose of 240 mg per meter square 15 minutes before the administration of ifosfamide. The last toxicity which I am going to discuss here is the nephrotoxicity, one of the major adverse drug reaction of cisplatin. Severity of renal toxicity can be reduced through hydration of the patient and administration of mannitol. Renal damage arises from the toxic effects of cisplatin on renal tubules. It resulting in decreased GFR, increased reabsorption, and this nephrotoxicity does not develop until a week or two after the treatment is begun, may be worsened if nephrotoxic agents, aminoglycosides, are co-administered. All the adverse effects are reversible or discontinuation of therapy. Nephrotoxicity, which occurs more commonly by bolus administration, can be minimized by fractionation or fractioning the dose over several days. So in brief, these are the common toxicities which we are observing in clinical practice with anti-cancer drugs. The mainstay of anti-cancer drug research is basically depending on obviously the animal experiment followed by clinical trials, and the phase 1 clinical trial, here you will get the patients for phase 1. In most of the cases of other drugs, we are getting healthy volunteers, but here you are getting a small group of people who are probably having the disease or first time. You have to evaluate the safety just like the previous one, determine a safe dosage range and identify its adverse drug reactions, its tolerance and pharmacokinetics. Whereas in phase 2 clinical trial, this drug, the anti-cancer drug or the treatment, is given to a larger group of people to see its effectiveness, and obviously again you will judge its safety, and the different pharmacokinetic parameters are going to be evaluated, and you further evaluate its safety profile. So safety should be the first criteria for uh, invention of not only anti-cancer drug, rather any drug. Phase 3 clinical trial, where you see the study drug or the treatment is given to large group of people, more than 200, to further determine its effectiveness, monitor the adverse drug reactions, compare it to commonly used treatment, can collect information that will allow the drug or treatment to be used safely. So usually it's given to, as I said, large group of people, mostly done in case of indoor patients, and a comparative group is there, usually placebo. But in case of anti-cancer drugs or cancer chemotherapy, placebo is not going to be there. Probably a standard regimen is going to be compared. Whereas the phase 4 clinical trial is done after the drug or treatment has been marketed. These studies continue testing the study drug or treatment to collect information about their effect in various populations and any adverse drug reaction associated with its long-term use. So this is the way we will go for invention of anti-cancer. Different immunomodulator, immunosuppressive agents, including corticosteroids, are also going to be used in treatment of cancer at different places, and cyclosporine, tacrolimus, adrenocortical hormones, antimetabolites, alkylating agents, mycophenolate mofetil. These are also going to be important medication for the treatment of different cancers. And these immunosuppressive agents are going to be discussed in details in other lectures. There will be some immunopotentiators or like the immunostimulators like BCG vaccinations, which is used in bladder carcinoma, and there are different recombinant interferons and cytokines which are used as a immunomodulator drug therapy in different types of cancers. So when we are concluding the our discussion on anti-cancer drugs, let us discuss a little bit of new developments, and we'll finish it after saying few things about the development of newer preparations or the main step of anti-cancer drug research. Non-clinical research are important, but the screening of anti-cancer drugs are usually done in vitro, tumor cell culture, tumor inhibitor or tumor killing test. In vivo, firstly you have to go for the animal test, xenograft model, or different types of, as I said, the carcinogenicity test, followed by pharmacodynamics, pharmacokinetics and toxicology test. This is usually done first in animals and then followed by the clinical trials, the way I have mentioned in the previous slides. The molecular mechanism usually happening with the chemotherapy, or rather whenever we are observing a drug resistance to chemotherapy, what we observe is basically a more general form of multi-drug resistance in association with the expression of a gene encoding a particular protein or tumor cells. And many instances, specific drug resistance results from an amplification in the number of gene copies for an enzyme inhibited by a specific chemotherapeutic agent. Most of the anti-cancer drugs are used systematically. These are selected indications for local or regional administration in the form of direct infusion or active chemotherapeutic agents into tumor site. This cancer chemotherapy is mostly associated with, as I said, different adverse drug reactions. So it is essential that these effects should be managed efficiently to make our therapy successful. And most of these drugs usually cause nausea, vomiting, which can be managed by giving ondansetron, aprepitant and other related antiemetics, adjuvant antiemetics like dexamethasone. Bone marrow transplantation along with the administration of growth factors, the stem cells provide rapid remission with reduced toxicity of the chemotherapeutic agents. We are trying to conclude our presentation with a clinical case study where a male diabetic patient, 63 years old, diagnosed with a ALL, that means acute lymphoid leukemia, and put on 6 mercaptopurine with a single daily dose of 150 milligram orally. He is obese with a body weight of around 80 kg, resistant to insulin, dyslipidemic. So he developed renal insufficiency with elevated blood urea and serum creatinine level. The remission occurred with 6 mercaptopurine initially, but his daily requirement of the drug had to be increased to maintain the disease state satisfactorily. Over a period, he developed recurrent attacks of acute arthritis involving knee joints and required non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs for symptomatic relief. How do you explain this clinical condition? What drugs do you suggest to relieve his condition? What are the possible investigations you think are appropriate to diagnose the condition? So the drug is 6 mercaptopurine, and you think about the probable drug interaction and adverse drug reaction with the same agent. Thank you so much for your patient hearing.